5 from Deputy Eamon Ryan.
I'm keen to get detail from the Minister here with regard to a very welcome project, the use of waste heat from Poolbeg to heat Dublin, certainly part of Dublin. This is one of the big practical projects that we can do that benefit our economy, turn what's currently a waste resource into a precious resource. I welcome the 20 million funding indicated in the Climate Action Plan, but I'm keen to get details. I presume that's part of a staged development where we think far bigger and looking at all the waste heat from the Poolbeg Peninsula. Keen to get details from the Minister as to what is planned.
Minister.
Yeah, no, I'd like to thank Deputy Ryan for his positive response for this. This was one of the schemes, as you know, that came out of the Climate Action Fund and Dublin City Council. The project is an application by Dublin City Council to capture heat from the waste heat generated at the Dublin Waste to Energy plant and pipe it into homes and businesses in the Poolbeg, Ringsend and Docklands area of Dublin. And it was approved for up to 20 million support from the Climate Action Fund. I understand that up to 90 megawatts of waste heat is produced in the Dublin Waste to Energy plant that has the potential to heat the equivalent of 50,000 homes and would otherwise be released into the atmosphere and lost. The proportion of this heat used by the district heating project will depend on the level of heat demand connected to the network and is expected to grow over the lifetime of the project. I understand from operators, I was down when I visited them, it has the potential to double the energy efficiency of the plant. So what's happening at the moment is the detailed validation of the project is currently underway, but the project has considerable potential to significantly reduce carbon emissions. This has been estimated at over 30,000 tonnes of carbon over a 10-year period for the initial phases of the project. And I suppose, to be fair, I should also mention that Dublin South had a similar project on a slightly smaller scale that was approved in the same. So these are two significant district heating projects, and I hope they will prove their potential.
Ryan.
Mr. My understanding that the first phase is, and as I said, we're very much welcome this project, but we're just looking at a first initial phase where we would connect into new housing in the Docklands or new businesses, the likes of the Irish Glass Bottle site, the likes of all that new build, a lot of commercial premises going into the North Inner City along the quays and so on. That's all very welcome. But I'm very keen that we would ramp up that ambition and be much more ambitious in terms of where there are some pipes already in place, I understand, that would allow us maybe to extend further upriver, to new developing areas like Houston Park Quarter. I believe we should be looking at a whole range of other developments. Now, that will require not just the Council to support it, but I think it may require government support as well, in that the real trick is obviously there in terms of installing the piping to be able to make further and wider connections. That 90 megawatts, I think you said, of waste heat is not insignificant. It could grow even further if we connected other of the power stations down in the Poolbeg Peninsula, where there's also waste heat going out into the Liffey. Are there plans for that sort of level of scaling up and a much more ambitious approach?
I suppose the Climate Action Fund was an initiative to, I suppose, have bottom-up thinking about what is possible. And I think it is significant that two schemes that were successful are both in district heating. The Dublin City one with 20 million and the South Dublin County Council Tala one with 4.5 million, which signals to me that there is potential in this area. I know from speaking to the city manager when we were down there is they have, as you say, laid a number of pipes already. They have a network there. They have a number of buildings that are already can be connected. So in one way, they've done some of the homework over time to make this a possibility. So I will certainly be looking at the potential of schemes like this to be extended further, and I welcome new ideas in that area. I suppose that's what the Climate Action Fund is, and I think what you'll see, most of the initiatives that came out of it were sort of creating better frameworks that we could expand in the future years, and this is clearly one of them.
Ryan.
It's true, and I suppose what we learn from experience here, because we are retrofitting district heating in, But I suppose we should be looking at every other industrial facility across the country and seeing where there is any waste heat. Can we trap it? Can we move it? Can we use it? Our biggest problem, one of the biggest problems in the energy side now, isn't so much in the electrification, it's in the heat area, where we're furthest behind our target is in heat. We will not be able to meet that on biomass alone. We should not. We have to stop burning fossil fuel for heat. So district heating is the key obvious beneficiary. I would just encourage the Minister, I mean, as much as this project is very welcome, when you think about 30,000 tonnes is not an insignificant saving in terms of carbon emissions, but in the scheme of the 100 million tonne gap we have to close, it is really only a drop in the ocean. And I think when across a whole range of areas, we need to start scaling up our ambition. So rather than these two, while they're welcome pilot projects, we should be looking at every industrial facility across the state to see, is there waste heat that we could use, to facilitate industry and local communities to do that, and really to think much bigger about the possibilities here.
Minister, to conclude
I agree, and I suppose at the end of the day, I suppose I'll have to be conscious that the cost effectiveness of the different measures that come forward will have to enter into the calculation. And in these cases, I can't recall. I think it's 50-50. We're putting in half the money, and I think half the money is being raised elsewhere. So I suppose you do have to look at the effectiveness of this and the cost effectiveness of any subsequent heating project. This project, I presume, had an edge because it had built into some of the planning decisions it made in the past, the sort of piping that didn't have to be, as you say, retrofitted. It was already fitted at design stage. So I suppose what I'm trying to do is look at, can we ensure that our standards and regulations, make this an easier concept for the future, as well as can we develop projects that are feasible to implement in the near term.
Thank